Azra, is it okay? Can you see it like this? This is fine.
Yeah, this is okay. We can see it.
If I go into presentation mode, my computer freezes and slows down. So I think I'll just try it that way instead.
Okay, sounds good.
So will we be able to get your copy of the presentation after the meeting, or is there a report that you're looking to publish?
The meeting will be recorded.
No, I was actually looking for the deck itself.
Yes, we can send you after.
Wonderful.
After
Thank you.
That's the webinar. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. We haven't heard from Kristen. Kristen, are you there? Hello, Kristen.
Hi, sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Elmer, there is another Wolf in Canada. I see. Is that Laura? You're mute.
Yeah, it's me.
Okay, excellent. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Hi. Great. So, Elmer, are you starting and passing?
Yeah, let me just
Gavin?
let me share my screen first. I think. Let me just see. Not easy because this is. We are so used to using Teams that I have difficulty using Zoom. Okay, let me just share my screen. So after this, who will do the who will present it? So I will share my screen first, and then after that it's Gavin, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes. Yes.
So which one is it? The presentation mode or the one with two split screen?
It's in presentation mode.
Okay, that's good.
Hello.
Hello, Alastair.
Hi, Elman. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for being the moderator for today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. And welcome.
Thank you.
We should be starting in a minute now. I'm not sure if how many people are already from World Vision Canada have already logged in. Laura, are you able to monitor?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find where. Okay, down here. There are no new World Vision people yet.
How many of them are already there?
It's you and Azrat and Christine and myself.
Only 4 of us.
Yeah.
As I was reading your bio, Gavin, I have found out that you pitched this to Dragon's Den. That's really cool. Is there still a video clip of that?
There is. It's on their website and it's also on Netflix now as well.
Oh, good. I would love to watch it.
Yeah, it's season 13, I think.
Season 13? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I can see the participants here now. Okay.
There's a few more.
Yeah. Okay, let's wait for another 2 minutes, and I think we should start. Oh, some people are in teams. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Let me
A few
go
people are
back.
actually clicking on teams.
I will try and move them over. Just a moment.
Yeah, okay, please, thank you. Because that's the default. Normally go to teams, and then the probably a lot of people are there and they're probably confused why we haven't started yet. So Laura has to herd them towards Teams, towards Zoom. Okay, 1 more minute and we should get started. I think they are slowly trickling in. Laura is asking them to join us here.
Yeah, if they didn't update their calendar invite, they're just automatically going to the old invitation
Yeah.
for the regular meeting. So
Yeah, they continue to click there. I can see.
yeah.
Okay. We are 5 minutes late. So we should get started in a few seconds now. Okay, I think let's get started. Everybody, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar entitled improving dietary supplementation of iron using Lucky Iron Fish, which will focus on the results and lessons learned from a field trial in Enrich program in Tanzania. As we all know, World Vision currently implements Enrich, a $52 million multi-year, multi-country program funded by Global Affairs Canada that aims to improve the health and nutrition status of 2 million mothers, newborns, and children in select regions of Bangladesh, Kenya, Myanmar, and Tanzania. So for the benefit of our guests today, my name is Elmer Lighid. I'm one of the managers here at World Vision Canada's Programs and Policy Division, and I will be your moderator today. So here are the objectives of our session for today. The first one is to introduce Lucky Iron Fish and the partnership between Lucky Iron Fish Enterprise, or LIFE, and World Vision Canada. And secondly, to share experiences of the Lucky Iron Fish implementation research in Tanzania under the Enrich program. So here's our session flow for today. So we have we are already late, so we have to rush this 3-minute overview and introductions. And the first part really is the introduction to Lucky Iron Fish and the partnership between LIFE and World Vision Canada. So we have 3 speakers from LIFE, and that will be followed by the sharing of results and lessons learned from the field trial of the Lucky Iron Fish in Enrich program in Tanzania by Dr. Ashrat and Christine. After that, we'll have a Q&A for 10 minutes and closing comments for 2 minutes. But before we go to the program proper, let me introduce all our speakers for today. May I request our speakers to wave your hand once I call your name to be recognized. So our first speaker is Akanksha Mishra. So as an impact strategist, she values the intersection of social impact and business worlds with a corporate social responsibility lens. She has supported organizations to design and deliver services that improve impact metrics. Her experience includes business development, consulting, and growth advisory services with corporate and nonprofit organizations across Asia and Canada. The second speaker is Dr. Alistair Summerlee, a passionate humanitarian, dedicated teacher, and internationally renowned researcher. Dr. Alistair served as President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Guelph, Interim President and Vice Chancellor, Carleton University, and Professor of Biomedical Research. He is currently an adjunct professor at Carleton and a Professor Emeritus Biomedical Science at Guelph. A lot of roles here, hats. Dr. Summerlee is part of the international movement to unite universities worldwide in fighting hunger and poverty, known as the Presidents United to Solve Hunger, and was the International Quality of Life Laureate at the United Nations in 2012. The last speaker, but not the least speaker from LIFE, is Dr. Gavin Armstrong. He is a committed and award-winning impact entrepreneur. He is the founder and the CEO of Lucky Iron Fish Enterprise. He was a Fulbright Scholar and was awarded the prestigious Forbes 30 Under 30 in Social Enterprise Entrepreneur category in 2016. In 2017, he received the Muhammad Ali Humanitarian Award and was named Social Entrepreneur of the Year by EY Canada. In 2018, he successfully pitched Lucky Iron Fish Enterprise on CBC's Dragons Den, where he was able to secure a deal with 2 dragons. So that's 13, the series, or but you look at what we will look for it at Netflix and YouTube. Okay, and we have 2 speakers from World Vision Canada. Christine Salib, who is the Enrich Research and Publication Intern, and of course, Dr. Ashrat Dibaba, the Chief of Party Enrich program at World Vision Canada. Okay, so now let's go to the session proper, and I will now give the presentation rights to Gavin, Dr. Gavin Armstrong. So the floor is yours, Dr. Gavin. You have to stop share, right? Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for being here today and for joining us virtually on this session. Sorry, I just need 1 second as my computer shares the presentation. Sorry. Great. Can everyone see it? We're good? Good, thank you. Sorry. So thank you, everyone. It's the joys of trying to do these things virtually and always having a problem no matter how many times you practice. As was said, I'm Gavin, the founder and CEO of Lucky Ironfish. I'm joined by Dr. Alistair Summerly, who is our Director of Research, and Akanksha Mishra, who's our newest member of the team, who's managing our impact and partnerships portfolio. So Lucky Ironfish Enterprise, or LIFE, is a social enterprise with a commitment to be based on science and built on values. It's our mission to create and distribute solutions for iron deficiency, which we know is the world's largest and most pressing nutritional problem, negatively impacting the lives of over 2 billion people around the planet. And though anyone can suffer from this preventable condition, it does primarily impact women and children, especially those living in poverty. Lucky Ironfish is a certified benefit corporation, or B Corporation, which is an international certification that goes to businesses that are committed to doing good and that have social impact embedded in their business model and supply chain. Lucky Ironfish is available for sale in over 50 countries around the world. And we work with a social impact model where we sell to NGOs like World Vision, clinics and institutions around the world to distribute the product in bulk to populations who can benefit from it the most. And we also have a sales channel where we sell the fish online through our website and through Amazon, and funds from this sales channel help support the work that we do with our NGO partners. Any fish that we sell online, we take a portion of that sale and we put it towards donating units for free to families in need around the world, which is something we've done with the World Vision Gift Guide, which we'll touch on in a little bit. So as I mentioned, Lucky Ironfish is based on science. So we have a strong belief that we need to have data, and lots of data, to be able to validate the claims that we're making and to help scale our solution. So we have more than 15 trials that have been done internationally in a variety of different communities looking at different outcomes, which Alistair will touch on in a moment. So what is the Lucky Ironfish and how does it work? So if you can see in the little square, this is the Lucky Ironfish. It fits in the palm of my hand, but it's having a profound impact internationally. And it's just a simple cooking tool. Just boiling the Lucky Ironfish for 10 minutes in 1 liter of liquid can fortify that meal with 6 to 8 milligrams of bioavailable iron. That liquid could be drinking water, it could be soup, stew, pasta sauce, anything where the liquid is absorbed is a way of having this device fortify that meal with iron. So though the product sounds very simple, there's a lot of complexity in its design. The Lucky Ironfish is all natural. It's made from a special type of iron, electrolytic iron, which is used in food fortification. Because it's a low dose of iron, our trials have shown that there are no negative side effects when using the Lucky Ironfish. It can be reused every day by the entire household for up to 5 years, making it an incredibly sustainable and affordable solution. The product is vegan certified, and so it does work with populations who have a predominantly vegetarian or vegan diets. It's lightweight, so it's easy to distribute and ship. It doesn't change the taste, color, or smell of the liquid that it's cooked in, and it has a special smile. So not only is the smile cute, but it actually has a purpose. As I mentioned, the fish can be reused every day for 5 years. But that, of course, could vary depending on how many times you use it. So once the smile fades away, that's when it's time for you to get a new Lucky Ironfish. So when your fish isn't happy anymore, that's when you trade it in to get a new one. So why is it shaped like a fish? Well, when the work started in Cambodia with Dr. Christopher Charles, it was actually an iron block that was being used. And though this was found to be scientifically effective, women in the community said this looked like a piece of garbage, and they had no desire to put it into their food. They said, that's crazy, that's disgusting. I'm not eating this piece of trash that you found on the side of the road. But after some research, Chris discovered that the symbol of fish is a symbol of luck and prosperity in Khmer culture. And so he shaped it like a fish and called it the happy fish. And then women wanted to use it because they thought it would bring luck to their households. And then when they started feeling better and from using the product, they would say, oh, it must be the luck of the fish that did that. I don't have headaches anymore. I'm not fainting anymore. And so that's where the name Lucky Iron Fish came from. So when I joined as a part of my PhD research, I further innovated the product, which is the one on the far right. And you'll notice that on the surface of it, there's a symbol. This is a Khmer symbol that means good. We wanted people to recognize this was a product that would be good for them to use. So we branded it like that and further innovated the design. This product worked great for Cambodia, but as we started to scale the project and go into new countries, that Khmer symbol didn't work. And in fact, in some communities, they thought it was a snake, which was a bad omen. So we decided to rebrand the product with a maple leaf so that we can communicate that this is the Canadian health innovation that's helping address iron deficiency globally. So as we continue to grow and move into new markets, the symbol of a fish with a maple leaf was working quite well. But we went into one country where we hit a lot of resistance with this shape, and that was India. With a very vegetarian population, even a fake fish was not going to work for those households. So we did the same approach that we used when we discovered the fish shape and found that tulsi leaves have health properties and in Indian culture. So we have now a fish version or a leaf version, the Lucky Shakti leaf. Both do the exact same thing, made from the same material, but just cast in a different shape. So now I'll pass it over to Alistair, who can speak a bit more about our research.
Thank you very much. So as Gavin alluded to, we've done a significant number of trials in the laboratory, but we've also done clinical trials, and those tend to be field trials where we're working with different populations. Understandably, most communities say, it's a lovely idea, but I'm not sure it will work for us. So the kind of work we've done in the lab before we even started to sell the product was to look at the amount of iron that is released and the bioavailability of that iron. We obviously have to make sure that the product is safe, that we need to know something about the dynamics of the iron release, and then we need to know how much is absorbed when you're eating a food or drinking a drink that is made using the Lucky Iron Fish. The field trials we have carried out predominantly involve women of reproductive age, obviously because that's the group of people who are most at risk from iron deficiency because of pregnancy and menstruation. But the second most important category are infants, children aged between 1 and 5 years old. And then in fact, in early school age children, age 5 to 7. But we've also looked at specific populations that might be vulnerable for particular reasons. For example, HIV positive men and women who are not only because of the infection with HIV, but because the antiretroviral drugs tend to depress their iron levels even further. They have a real challenge in low to middle income countries to be able to maintain their iron levels. So we wondered if the fish would help. And then we've also looked at malaria positive women because again, there is a concern about replacing iron when you are losing so much from the kind of breakdown of red blood cells that happens in the disease malaria. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of background about the product's safety, we know that it's important that if we're going to be delivering a mineral to people, that we can guarantee that we're not adding a number of contaminants that may be deleterious to human health. Obviously, the big ones would be lead, mercury, etc., that are really challenging if there are any of them. So in the process of making the fish, as Gavin explained, we start with an electrolytic iron powder. We test the powder to make sure that it doesn't have these contaminants. Then that powder is compressed in a special process into the mold. And after it's been compressed into the mold, they're tested. And then once they're shipped, we actually do a random sample to make sure that none of these elements are present. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the dynamics of iron release. If you look on the left-hand side of the figure, there are several ways that you can affect the amount of iron that comes off the surface of the fish. You need to have a solution that is slightly acidic, and you can use citrus juice or tamarind or tomato, any fruit, in fact, that acidifies the meal. And lots of communities and countries either have something available or that it's actually within their culture. For example, in Cambodia and a lot of the Southeast Asian peninsula, pineapples are used extensively in meal preparation. So the amount of acid and the type of acid, then the length of time that you boil it. The boiling point also affects the amount of iron that comes off, and that's related to altitude, because water at higher altitudes boils at a lower temperature. Whichever one of these parameters you play with, you can get anything from 1 to 500 milligrams of iron from the fish every time you cook it. And each time you get a graph that looks like the one on the right-hand side. So we've obviously picked somewhere in the middle of this sigmoid curve, and that's how we know that if you boil your fish for 10 minutes in 1 liter of water with 2 to 3 drops of lemon juice, you will get about 6 to 8 milligrams of iron each time. Next slide, please. This slide shows the bioavailability. On the left-hand side is a graph that shows the appearance of iron in the serum of a group of women after they have drunk 1 liter of water that has 10 milligrams of ferrous sulfate in it. This is very similar to the kinds of products that are in iron pills. And you can see that over time, there's an increase and then a slow decrease in the amount of iron in the blood, shown by the blue bars. Compared on the right-hand side is the impact on serum iron using water that's been boiled with the fish. And the curves are very similar between the two, so that we know that this iron that is being released from the fish is actually being absorbed in the bloodstream to have an impact. Next slide, please. There is no impact on the taste of the food. It doesn't change either the taste or the smell or the color of the food. But we would expect that because this is iron fortification. The levels of iron for iron fortification are very low, so there's no risk of toxicity. But if in fact you cooked the fish for longer, as I explained earlier, you could get a lot more iron off your fish, and perhaps there would be a risk of toxicity. The very cool feature of the fish is that if you boil it for longer, what happens is as more iron comes off, it starts to affect the taste and the color of the liquid. And women actually say it's unpalatable and they will not use it. So this is a self-regulation for whether or not there would be toxicity. Next slide, please. I mentioned that we've done a number of clinical trials. These are listed on the current slide that also is showing where the highest levels of iron deficiency and iron deficiency anemia occur. The darker the blue in the world map, the higher the levels of iron deficiency. But it's also very important to understand that even in those light blue countries, the level of iron deficiency hovers at about 20% of the population, which means that it's a very serious problem indeed. And of course, the latest sojourn into the clinical trials is working in Tanzania. Next slide, please. So I'm going to just summarize the overall findings that have come from a variety of studies. And obviously, to avoid the perception of conflict of interest, the company does not engage in its own clinical trials. The original work done by Dr. Christopher Charles and Dr. Armstrong were part of their PhD, but since that time, all the work has been done by engaging with other groups, either universities or NGOs, such as the discussion we're having today. So the key findings from all this work are first that the iron fish is only effective if you're trying to treat anemia that is caused by iron deficiency. It was set up that way, not a surprise that that's the only type of anemia that it addresses. What is fascinating is that using the fish, we have consistently high compliance rates. 85 to 90% of users continue to use the fish, not just during clinical trials, but even a year later when researchers have gone back are still using the fish. And this is completely different from other forms of iron replacement. Most of them obviously iron supplementation, where if I take, for example, iron pills, the compliance rate in some jurisdictions is down to about 35%. So with the majority of people continuing to take this, we actually see a significant improvement in hemoglobin levels over time, but it's fortification, so it takes some months for you to see significant change. And with the increase in hemoglobin, you get a significant reduction in anemia. One of the key features that we know is important is that there are no side effects associated with the fish, but there are side effects with iron pills. In some of the studies that have been carried out, we've been able to see that there's also an improvement in serum ferritin, but not in all populations. And perhaps we can come back to that later. The women who are using the fish also report significant improvements in their own perception of health. They have fewer fainting periods, fewer headaches. They say they have more energy. And in one study, we've been able to show that children in school-age children, age 5 to 7, have a significant improvement in their cognitive development. Next slide, please. Just a few issues that we have found in the past, and some of these will come back in, I think, some of the presentations that Azrat is going to make. The lucky ironfish, as I've said, is only effective against iron deficiency anemia, not other forms of anemia. If you don't engage community leaders in helping to encourage people to believe that this is worth trying and sticking with it, then you run into trouble. If you don't address local concerns and issues, you can be in trouble. And if you don't work with the local community to think about how to use the fish or the leaf properly. But factors that facilitate success are that you are dealing with a population who have iron deficiency anemia, that you use local networks on the ground who have a strong credibility with the local population, that you really make sure you work directly with the head of the household or the person making meals. And finally, one of the key features we found is that the fish or the leaf needs to be stored in the cooking area or close to the cooking area. We learned that in those communities where they treasured the fish and put it into a special place, the women forgot to use it each time they were cooking. Next slide, please. Just to comment on the future directions, we're looking at different types of diets, different types of drinks, different types of acidifiers, and see what kind of impact this has on the iron absorption. We're also expanding by partnership into a number of other communities and particular sections of those communities. And then one of the things that we would like to be able to do is to start to look at combining use of the fish with pills that are given during pregnancy when the demand for iron is especially high. And we're also extending our work on using it with HIV patients, where we had some very exciting positive results. Next slide, please. So I'm going to pass you over to Akanksha, and she'll say a few words about working with World Vision.
Thank you, Alistair, and thank you, Gavin. This has truly been an innovative and collaborative partnership with World Vision. To highlight a few elements of our collaboration, Tanzania is, of course, the Shinyana district was funded through the Enrich program, where World Vision purchased about 3,600 fish, and Lucky Iron donated an additional 1,000 units. With East Timor, a project that positively impacted about 350 families. Happy to report that Lucky Iron Fish has been a part of the World Vision gift catalog, where we implemented the 1:1 matching program. So for about 2,600 fish, it ramped up to 5,200. To also summarize the potential opportunities that we could look at for collaboration, one would be we could expand our partnership in Tanzania to include more beneficiaries. We could leverage the positive outcome which Dr. Asrat would share, and an already established trust quotient in the community for the same. In addition, we could definitely explore partnerships with World Vision Kenya in neighboring region. Secondly, we could look to expand programming to new research countries. Lucky Iron Fish is global, and it would be great to use that collaboration. Thirdly, we could co-identify partnerships in the nutrition projects, which could be a complementary product offering to the different suite of the nutritional programming. I could pass it on to Gavin if you have any parting comments here.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for letting us give a high-level overview about what we do. But now I think we're going to dive a little deeper into the results of what happened in Tanzania with Asrat.
We'll now proceed to the presentation of Dr. Asrat and Christine. Please go ahead, Christine.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Elmer, and thank you, the live team, for excellent presentation and genesis and history of LIF. Today we will be sharing the field trial from Tanzania, which was undertaken through the Enrich program, specifically Enrich Tanzania project. The principal investigators for our implementation research came from the government, Dr. Shani, the district health management team lead, and Dr. To, deputy director for Tanzania Food and Nutrition Center at Dar es Salaam. And the other participants are the Enrich program managers and coordinators from Tanzania, and our research and publication intern, Kristen Sullivan, and myself, with technical support from Lucky Iron Fish. So I'll not go through the Enrich background because Elmer beautifully presented Enrich, provided the background, and then I'll just proceed. I will not be also discussing the global burden of anemia. It was presented excellent by Dr. Lester as well as also Gavin, but I just would like to emphasize that anemia burden is very high in developing countries, low-income countries, and accounting for 89% of anemia-related disability, even if anemia is also common in high-income countries like here in Canada and elsewhere. Coming specifically to the anemia situation in Tanzania, anemia in Tanzania is a significant public health problem. Enrich is implemented in 2 districts in Tanzania, Shinyanga and then the Singida districts. According to the Demographic and Health Survey of 2016, one of these Enrich districts, Shinyanga, has the highest anemia prevalence among children under 5, accounting for 71%. And Singida, which is another enriched district, has the lowest prevalence, but still very high, accounting for 37%. So once we came to know that Shinyanga has the highest prevalence, which is 71% among children under 5, we decided to focus on, in addition to other interventions, address this anemia burden. And we put together multiple strategies to reduce anemia among children under 5 and then also pregnant and lactating women. So we implemented several interventions. For example, we promoted appropriate infant and young child feeding practices, such as exclusive breastfeeding and complementary feeding for children, exclusive breastfeeding among children below 6 months of age, and complementary feeding up to the age of 5 years. And then the other strategy is we implemented micronutrient supplements, the MNPs, through one of our partners, Nutrition International. So these are the sachets. Each sachet contains around 12 micronutrients, including iron, but low dose again, like 10 milligram of iron. And then each child was provided 180 sachets per year, so consumed every other day. And then we also collaborated with another international organization called SANCU, and then we promoted food fortification. SANCU distributed 16 dosifier, their technology called dosifier, which is attached to a small-scale hammer mill or flour mill, and added critical nutrients like zinc, vitamin B12, and iron, and folic acid into the flour. And then this program was, we subcontracted SANCU and implemented for 1 year. And we were able to supply 16 hammer mills in Shinyanga region with dosifier and then the micronutrient premix. The other intervention is, as we discussed, Lucky and Fish promotion. We collaborated with Lucky and Fish Enterprise, the Ministry of Health, and Tanzania Food and Nutrition Center to conduct an implementation research, a cohort implementation research over a 10-month period. And the purpose is, ultimately, is to ensure Lucky and Fish is integrated in the nutrition policy and promoted by the government. And the methodology we used, we implemented a single group pre-post study design with a mixed method, qualitative and quantitative. And we enrolled a total of 82 participants. And then the inclusion criteria was hemoglobin level as measured by HemoQ, greater than 7 grams per deciliter, but less than 11 milligrams per deciliter. And then we also collected blood samples to test, to measure serum ferritin level and C-reactive protein in the blood. And this test was done at Tanzania Food and Nutrition Center laboratory in Dar es Salaam. We transported blood samples from Shinyanga over a couple of days by air to Dar es Salaam for measurements. And then the quantitative data analysis was also conducted using SPSS and Excel. And then statistical significance was tested at an alpha level of 0.05. And community health workers regularly visited the families, those related to children families, and then to ensure that like iron fish is used on a daily basis and to address any questions caretakers might have. And then at the end of the 10 months follow-up, we conducted also a qualitative post-study focus group discussion and to understand acceptability and adherence of black herring fish. And we also conducted a thematic analysis and through inductive coding for the qualitative data. I will stop here and pass to Christine as we are running a bit out of time. Christine, over to you. I will move the slides for you.
Thank you. So overall, the results we see actually very similar to the presentation that was just provided. There was a decrease in the prevalence of mild and moderate anemia. The average invasive hemoglobin levels significantly increased for more females than male, especially between the ages of 1 to 3. And then in terms of serum ferritin, the averages had actually decreased for females, but increased for males, and for those between 2 to 4 years old, but all these results are non-significant. However, when we looked at individual participant number of serum ferritin, we saw that the individual participants had, there showed to be an increase in serum ferritin. And then main themes gathered from the qualitative data included positive acceptability of the lucky ironfish in participant families. You can see that there's a quote here: "The lucky ironfish have no negative side effects to our children's health. Not any complications have been observed, so we are happy to continue using the fish and ensuring our children's health is improved." So that was the mother of the participant. And then I'll just briefly go through some of the results. The next slide.
Dr. Ashok, next slide, please.
Okay, sorry, my computer froze.
Okay, I can also share it if you'd like.
Maybe go ahead and share your slide, Christine.
Yep, I can share. Okay, so here we can see on average, the hemoglobin levels had actually increased over time. So although variation per month, may be dependent on the amount of participants that were included in each of the analysis per month, but overall we see an increase in the trend line, and this was actually significant. So yeah, you can also see it going from mild anemia, or from moderate anemia to mild, so increasing to mild over time. And then here we see, so in the 7 to 9.9, so those who showed, so overall, those who showed normal anemia had increased, that's the yellow bars, and those who showed mild, which is the orange bars, and moderate, which is the orange bars, and gray, which is the mild, had actually decreased. So the normal 11 participants had entered the normal hemoglobin levels by month 10. And then overall, so these are non-significant, but we do see it slightly had a greater increase in the females who participated over the males. But overall, we do see that increase in trend line over time. And then if we're looking at individual comparison between month 1 and 10, we do see, again, both an increase individually with males had increased and females had increased, although non-significant, but between groups, so between males and females, there was a significant increase. And this is in the hemoglobin levels, so indicative of anemic levels. And then for the critical age groups here, when stratified from 6 months to 24 months, and then 24 to 59 months, there was a significant increase in the hemoglobin. And then, yeah, the hemoglobin per age group, so 0 to 5, 6 months to 12 months, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4 years, there was non-significant, but yeah, the main thing to take away is that critical age groups had increased significantly. And then in terms of serum ferritin levels, so again, kind of conflicting, but we did see on average, we're just taking the average of the 34 sample or 33 samples that were viable enough. So this is after filtering out the high CPR levels. There was a decrease in the average serum ferritin levels from baseline to unline. That was for all of the samples, but then when we compared them for by sex, we also saw that there was a slight increase for males, but a decrease in females. Again, these are non-significant as well. But then when we looked at the individual ferritin levels, so assessing those participants, overall, we see that the abnormal ferritin levels had decreased. So baseline, there was 23 overall who showed to be normal, and by the end, there were 28 who showed to be normal. So individually, they increased in ferritin, but the average had decreased. Yeah, similarly here, not significant, but 0.5 to 2 years age group had increase in serum ferritin levels, while 2 to 5 year age group had decreased in serum ferritin levels. And then qualitative results. Overall, there were more positive themes. So of the 9 responses gathered, there were themes of, fish meaning that it's a healthy child, or desire for continuity of lucky ironfish even after the study. And then some other negative themes include, myths of blood taking, which could have led to less participants participating later on in the study, and then scarcity of resources after the study as well. And then overall conclusions we see here is that, so there was an increase in hemoglobin. Like we said, the serum ferritin, though the average decreased over time, the number of participants' serum ferritin levels had increased. And then there was a weak positive correlation between hemoglobin and serum ferritin. Families mostly integrated lucky ironfish well into their lifestyles. And again, some difficulties and challenges since staying consistent, because families either moved or there was divorce in the family, and as such, these were exclusion criteria, so we couldn't include them in later samples, and myths of blood taking as well, as mentioned before. And lucky ironfish showed to have a positive impact on the hemoglobin of children between 1 to 5, especially to have a higher impact on females. And then suggestions for future research. Of course, the ideal is a randomized control trial, multimodal intervention, long-term, but when you're looking at practicality, it might be difficult. Esther, back to you.
Thanks, Christine. Coming to lessons learned, it was a journey for us. There are a lot of lessons learned documented. We, in the future programs, we really recommend that, such initiatives, new initiatives should involve all national level stakeholders from the outset. Tanzania Food and Nutrition Center, for example, in our case, is not engaged to know that TFNC was critical in this collaboration. For not involving TFNC, we had to suffer a bit in terms of getting the lucky ironfish out of the seaport. It was kept at the seaport at the beginning for quite some time, because TFNC was the institution to provide permit for importation, and then we didn't engage from the outset. And then at the community level, influence from community health workers, village leaders is critical, so they need to be involved from the outset. And by also allowing the government partners, like the DHMT lead and the deputy director of TFNC to be the principal investigators, we were able to ensure ownership and sustainability. Right now, the lucky ironfish implementation study is over, but over 50% of the 3,600 lucky ironfish have been distributed. There is a mass distribution going on, which is led by the district medical team. And also, we found out that such new technology and rollout should avoid any significant public events in the country. For example, our mass distribution last year was planned around a general election in the country, and then we had to suspend the mass distribution because the segment partners didn't want any conflict with the general election at that time going on in the country. And then that, with regard to institutional review board, the ethical clearance, it's also critical to understand from the outset the requirements at the country level. For example, Lucky Island Fish has a global insurance for using Lucky Island Fish, but the committee requested us to procure another insurance at the country level. So we came to know this, halfway, and we had to go back and solicit approval from the donor and purchase an insurance. So in addition to the global Lucky Island Fish insurance, we bought a local insurance to move forward and secure the IRB. So these are some of the key lessons learned for any similar replication of such implementation study in other countries. Thank you, and back to you, Elmer.
Thank you very much to all our speakers for today's webinar, and thank you for sticking to the time limit. Really appreciate it. So we are really exactly on time, and we might have to go 5 minutes over time because we started late by 5 minutes. So, to make sure that we are able to accommodate questions from the participants. So we are now into the Q&A segment. So we would encourage our colleagues to ask questions. You can unmute yourselves, or you can write your questions on the chat box. But while waiting for those questions, I have one question. I think you have mentioned, Dr. I think Alistair mentioned this as well, that you have to go back. He mentioned that you have to go back to this a little bit later. And I think Christine and Dr. Ashrat also mentioned this about the serum ferritin levels that is not significant, or in fact, for some females, the level also decreased. So maybe you can talk about, I understand that the serum ferritin level is the measurement of iron in our body cells. Maybe you can educate us more about this indicator, and is it the main indicator in the success for this project? And is it not concerning that it in fact decreased, or there could be other factors that affected that decrease among females? Because I think we are targeting more females because we are, if they are going to be pregnant and all that, it affects children and all that. So perhaps you can elaborate further on that, Dr. Alistair, and maybe Ashrat and Christine as well, because I think, my impression is that, how come that it has actually, it did not only improve, but it decreased in some of the females, but it has increased among the males. So maybe you can educate us more about that. Thank you.
Sure. So I'm going to do a little background on iron metabolism for everybody to make sure we're all on the same page. Iron is very important in the body. It is most important because it is one of the key building blocks for the protein hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is what you have in your red blood cells. The actual protein itself is red. It's why your blood looks red, but it carries oxygen to your cells. So it's very important for life. And then it takes the waste product, carbon dioxide, away from your cells. So clinicians are very interested in your level of hemoglobin, which is an indicator for whether you have enough iron in your body. If you don't have enough iron, you won't make enough hemoglobin. And they have established what's called a cutoff, saying if you're above the cutoff, that would be normal. And if you're below the cutoff, that would be anemia. And obviously, if you are anemic because you don't have enough iron, then that's called iron deficiency anemia. So that's the biggest measure that we use. But we also look at serum ferritin, because it's also an indicator of the amount of iron that's in the body. The challenge with measuring serum ferritin is it belongs to a class of proteins that are called inflammatory proteins. So if you have an infection, your levels of serum ferritin go up. If we're doing this work in a higher income country where we expect the levels of infection to be very low, then you would expect if somebody's iron status improves, their serum ferritin levels would go up. Because they won't have any other diseases, that you will say that's an impact of your treatment. In many of the low to middle income countries, infection is a real problem, and especially among women, communicable diseases, infections, are more prevalent in women than they are in men. So now picture the scene. We have men and women in the Tanzania study. The women are losing iron because of menstruation and pregnancy. And you would expect the serum ferritin levels to go down. We want to push those up. But the women are the ones who will have an artificially elevated serum ferritin level because they have higher levels of infection than men. So when you treat them and iron prevents disease, the women get better because of the disease, down come their levels of serum ferritin, not because of the iron, but because they're resisting the disease better. Whereas the men don't have that burden of disease and the serum ferritin levels can easily go up because of the iron. So you get this mixed result, and we have seen this in several of the studies. What you would expect is if you did this for longer, then you might see that shift in serum ferritin level that you would expect. But it's an initial surprise for people when they see that women don't do as well in that category compared with men in the same category. And that's the explanation that has been used by a number of people to say why we see those different types of results. It's also a challenge getting the data to be able to measure serum ferritin. It's easy to do a pinprick blood test on site for hemoglobin. You have to send the samples away for serum ferritin.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Alistair. We have another question here. Kyoko, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you all the presenters for your questions. And I mean, as Rat knows, we've been engaged in trying to answer some of these questions that are coming up, because even as we try to promote Lucky Iron, we also get questions about its efficacy as well as the safety concerns and all that. And unfortunately, I sit at that place where I have to answer on most of those to either our president or our vice president and external partners.
Okay, so we have another question here. It's from Elizabeth. It's on the chat box now. And the question here is, do you have other scientific studies that we could share with our field offices? Okay, so Dr. Gavin actually responded that, yeah, and he has shared the link here on the chat box to share with us the research summary around the studies in other countries. Okay, we have Anthony Peter here. Anthony, please unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the great presentation to you all. I have two questions regarding, particularly I wanted to ask one question around the SAM children, that means severe acute malnutrition children. What would be the recommendation for the severe acute children, those who are under treatment, may be receiving RUTF, which has a daily recommendation of iron in that product. So, and also the pregnant and lactating women who may receive the iron supplementation during their pregnancy and lactation period, what is the recommendation for them to use this Lucky Iron fish? And also I would like to just get to know about a little bit, does this Lucky Iron fish recommended as a treatment for the anemic patient, or is it only the prevention of anemia? I was not very clear on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anthony. So anybody would like to answer those questions after Dr. Alastair? Please go ahead.
Let me thank you, Anthony, for your questions. If I forget one of them, please come back to me. So fundamentally, this is about prevention. It is, however, a slow treatment. So if you are dealing with a population who need intervention because their levels are so low, where the fish is not the solution. But we all know that the acute treatment is a challenge because there are side effects. We do not, at the moment, recommend using the fish for pregnancy. And partly it's for exactly the same reason. The demand in pregnancy is very high. We hope to do research that will look at supplementing iron pills, which are in many countries mandated during pregnancy or provided during pregnancy, with the fish to reduce the amount of treatment coming from the pills. The work on HIV patients has been preliminary. We're expanding that, and I hope within a year's time we would have some specific recommendations that we might be able to make around that. As you rightly point out, ARVs are the problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question here on the chat box from David. Have there been studies comparing use of lucky iron fish with other locally available sources of iron in the target countries, including some cost-benefit analysis?
One of the big challenges about iron sources is that they are often contaminated with arsenic. And in many countries, there is as much concern about arsenic toxicity as there is about iron deficiency. So it's very concerning to think about other sources of iron as a way of providing adventitious iron for treatment. You really need to be certain that your source of iron has no contamination. That's one of the reasons that we spend a lot of time making sure that we have a very pure source of iron. The alternate treatments, such as iron pills or iron powders, there has been one study that has compared pills against the fish, and in that case they found that the fish was just as efficient as iron pills in increasing the level of iron in the body and reducing anemia, but the side effects from the pills were significant. This was a study done in children, and almost 100% of the parents of the children given the pills said that once the trial was over, they would stop using the pills because they couldn't cope with their children being unwell as a result of taking the pills. But 80% of the parents in the fish group indicated that they would stay using the fish. So there are some comparisons between pills and the fish, but there are none with other kinds of adventitious iron, and I'd be very worried about those because of contamination.
Thank you, Dr. Alastair. I think this question is for Gavin. Has World Health Organizations or other health organizations, have they acknowledged LIF?
So not at this stage, as it takes many years to develop that type of recommendation. But we have been sharing our information with organizations like Health Canada or WHO. We were in the process of launching a pilot with the World Food Program. Unfortunately, that was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic in the country where we were launching the pilot. So that's on hold until things stabilize. Then we're continuing to work with Health Canada on some more of a formal designation for the product.
Thanks, Gavin. Any other question from our colleagues before we wrap up? One last question. Okay, here's one here from Kyoko. Based on the current results, would use of LIF be on research basis only? Can you please elaborate that question, Kyoko? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm just asking this question because the idea of mass distribution, if we don't have good information to be able to defend it, even with government partners and others. I mean, we are a public organization in a sense. There is a lot of questions. We've already had questions on this. And so our response to date has been, a lot of our work has been more on a research basis. I'm just wondering whether we have any results to say we can do mass distribution.
Yeah, so with the variety of research that we have, we believe that there's a strong indication that the product is effective at both treating and preventing mild to moderate iron deficiency. We have worked with other NGOs who are now past the pilot stage and past the research stage, who are doing distribution on a larger scale. We continue to collect data to monitor the efficacy of the product. I think that where we focus is on pilots to ensure that the product is working within a regional context. So is it fitting within a diet? Is there compliance rates in that community? Proper usage, and that's more, I think, where our NGO partners are aiming to look. But we believe the data itself that we continue to gather is strong enough, and we have actually recommendations going to some governments around the world through our research partners, suggesting that they believe that there's a case to be made for large-scale distribution beyond the research stage.
Just a follow-up, maybe for Azrat, because TNFC was involved in this and they've seen these results. What is their view on, would this be something they would be comfortable supporting for mass distribution in Tanzania, or are they hesitant? I'm just wondering because they were involved in the research and they've seen the results.
Ashra?
Hey.
Dr. Ashra? You are muted.
I think
Dr.
he seems to be frozen, but I'm just wondering anybody could answer that. I mean, I'm just, because this is a government body that we were involved in the research, they have been part of that.
Sorry.
Are they in a position to support that?
Oh, he is there. Here, Bob.
Yeah, sorry, my internet is a bit unstable. I want to add, to what Gavin said and our experience with the government in Tanzania. So right now, we produced, after the end of the 10 months trial, we produced a special report for the Ministry of Health, and then that report was submitted to the district health management team, Shinyanga region. And the district management team provided permission to go ahead with mass distribution. So with that permission, we are now halfway distributing the lacquer and fish received by the government, because when we cleared the lacquer and fish from the seaport, it was cleared by an external agent and directly shipped to the district health management team in Shinyanga, bypassing World Vision office. Now this distribution is going on. The deputy director for TFNC is aware there is a management change at the TFNC level, but there is a lot of advocacy and engagement done by the district medical team and then World Vision Tanzania to ensure that lacquer and fish also has been recognized by the Tanzania Food and Nutrition Center, which is controlling most of the nutrition works in the country. But right now, based on our report, the DHMT has given a permission for the mass distribution, and that's what's going on in the region.
So thank you very much, Dr. Ashrat. I think we have to wrap up now. We have gone over time by 5 minutes. So on behalf of World Vision Canada, we would like to thank Gavin, Kangsha, and Dr. Alistair. Of course, to Christine and Dr. Ashrat for sharing the results of the field trial of black hair ironfish in Tanzania. And we would love to hear further updates about this partnership. Hopefully we can have a follow-up webinar sometime, probably in the winter or in the spring. Maybe we have more results by then. But before we close, any final words from either LIF or Dr. Ashrat and Christine?
Just if you have any further questions that you weren't able to ask, I could put my email in the chat and we'll make sure we can get to them.
There you go. Thank you very much.
From Enrich side, we really would like to appreciate Black Ironfish for the collaboration from the beginning. There is also much appreciation from the donor and also the district Minister of Health Bureau. I hope that we will continue to monitor the use of this Black Ironfish beyond Enrich, and hopefully to continue this work through other grants or through other World Canada sponsorship program. And thank you very much for your support so far. And also, I would like to thank all the participants who attended this webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. So the email addresses of our colleagues, our friends from Black Ironfish are on the chat box, so you can send your questions to them directly. With that, we would like to thank everybody for sticking until 12:12 for this very educational webinar. So thanks everybody and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.